Okay.
Right.
Uh, well, again, this week we've been talking about writing, and the whole month of June is going to be all about writing. So I think a lot of people have this great vision of all this writing they're going to do, and they're going to write their great book, and it's going to be War and Peace, and or whatever. I hope
Right.
not War and Peace. But they and then when they sit down and then they start thinking, oh well, what do I really have to say? Or I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people feel they have is writer's block. So that's what we're going to talk about, because we talked a lot about how to build good habits. Stephen King, who I'm not a fan of horror genre, but I am a fan of his discipline to get books. The guy is prolific, and he sits down and he writes 4 hours a day. Um, so I think one of the things that causes writer's block is somebody will think they've got this great idea, but then when they sit down, it doesn't sound so good to them as it did
Hmm.
in their head. And so then they start criticizing their writing as they're writing. And then all of a sudden they can't write because everything they're writing doesn't sound good anymore. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think part of it is just like you get this idea of like, oh, I'm going to write this, and then you get like, I don't know if it kind of goes back to, I don't know if it's the fear of not sounding good, or you start saying, oh, it's going to take so much time, and is anybody going to read it? You start making all these little excuses of why you're not going to write something. And I even wonder sometimes if if you want to call it things from my past, like I actually had to write a thesis when I got my master's degree that was 80 plus pages. And so it's kind of like, because I didn't enjoy it, but it was a requirement, it's almost like it gave me a bad taste about writing. And so it's like it's become this almost like this phobia. And so, I think that's been another thing. So I think just like I said, even doing these email newsletters for me has kind of helped me get like these mini successes that say, you know what, maybe I can write. People are saying, oh, I
Mhm.
really like what you're writing, and it just wasn't making the time to do it. If that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah, and well, part of it is it's a discipline. I mean, you have to sit down and you have to do it, and it's on my calendar every day to write for an hour. It's on my calendar every day to work on my financials, and then I get the rest of the day to do all the other fun stuff that helps my business grow. But those are equally important, and I think one of the things that people struggle with is that people also think, well, I haven't got anything to say that somebody else hasn't said.
Hmm.
And while there's nothing new under the sun, there is something new about our unique voice and our unique way of presenting that will resonate with a certain group of people who have to hear what we have to say.
Right.
It's just that important that we stop thinking so small and start thinking big. Like, who needs to hear my view, my perspective? Who am I called to help? And writing can be a really important way to do that.
Right. Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, and I think it's like you said, that discipline, or more, not even necessarily discipline, but making it a habit.
There you
Um,
go.
I think is the important thing, right? It's like, because it's like it's a muscle that if we don't use it, we don't train it, then we don't use it, or it atrophies, right? Like maybe, it's kind of like if you work out with weights, you stop lifting weights, you start to lose your definition because you stop doing
Mhm.
that habit. And I think, maybe it is, right? It's just small successes. Even having to write a post every week for, maybe your live show or whatever you might be doing, is getting you to write and making you think about how you write and how are you catching people's attention when you post, because it's kind of like sometimes, especially with social media posts, right? Those first two lines are going to be what get people to continue reading. your headlines, your, headlines on emails. If you just keep saying the same thing that everybody else is saying, yeah, nobody's going to read it. And I guess you have to be able to measure, and you're not going to see, I think the other thing why people get the block is like, you're not going to get people to read it overnight. You're not going to have like, hundreds and thousands of readers immediately.
Right.
So I think we let ourselves fall into that trap as well. It's like, well, I'm going to do all this content and nobody's reading it. Why am I doing it?
So, well, and that can be a real thought. But there's a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Jeffrey Gitomer.
Yes.
He's written a lot of books about sales. He's got the Little Red Book, 3.0 of this, Little Red Book. He wrote for 2 years, did not make any money, but he consistently wrote. And now, of course, he's big in the speaking circuit, and he talks a lot about selling. So there's a lot to be said about just the habit and the discipline. Plus, if you're really intent on becoming a writer, then what happens is, oh, I love the bird in the background. Okay, squirrel. Okay, so anyway, but as you do more, you start to see places where you can maybe be more concise, or you can take something. So I do a lot of what I call free writing. So when I don't know what to write, I just start writing. And even if all I do is write, I don't know what to write at this point. By the time I'm done writing all that, then something comes to mind, and I'm able to, usually I do a focused free writing because I'm writing a book. And so I use that time because it will help to, just the fact of sitting down and writing will actually help you generate ideas and get motivated. But it's the matter of sitting down and doing it.
Do you think though, I mean, I guess in a way, right, do you think it could help overcome the block to really find maybe a technology solution? Like, in a sense, it's like, yeah, I get the magic of, in a sense, pen to paper, or, even if you want to call it typing away on your keyboard. But do you think the ability to, like, in a sense, as I talk, it types, is maybe a way to help people overcome that? Because, okay, at least now you have that initial draft and your thoughts captured, and now you can go in and massage it. Like, do we almost fall into this, well, we've always done things like, this old way, and because that old way seems so time consuming, maybe it is a time to look at, okay, here's a way to help you maybe get things done quicker and then therefore see results.
I think that's really valid. I think you need to find the best way that works with your personality and your style. So for me, pen and paper works. There's something about having a pen and paper. So I've always got a notebook with me. And yesterday I was writing up a newsletter, and I was waiting for something. I don't even remember where I was, but I had to wait for something. And I thought, oh, well, I've got this notebook, so I'm just going to start writing my thoughts. And it was only maybe about a 10-minute write. It wasn't very long before the person I was waiting for came out. But other people can use like voice recordings. And there are transcription services that are super inexpensive, like Temi, TEMI.com. Temi transcriptions are very inexpensive, 25 cents a minute. Or if you want something that's going to be so it's total AI, which means that there is some work you have to do to make sure that some of the words are really what the person said, and not something that the AI tried to make work. But there's lots of really cool ways. I think you're right, though, that you can use. What if you have technology that helps, then that's a really good way. So recording it, voice to text. Yeah, those are all really good ways to get the ideas out, because we all have great things. And then find the right people to share that with, because I don't know about you, but the people who are closest to us sometimes really aren't as supportive, because they don't want us to be disappointed. So we tell them, I'm going to write a novel, or I'm going to write this book on business. And they'll go, oh, honey, now really, do you know what they're doing is they think they're protecting us. And what they're really doing is they're popping our balloons is what they're doing.
Right.
So I think you have to be careful who you share until you're well into your process. You have to be careful who you share your vision with so
Right.
that you stay motivated.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. I mean, it's no different than like, sometimes it's like, I don't think it's intentional, but it's like if you, in a sense, right, your friends and family aren't always going to be the ones that are supportive, because it's like, okay, here you go again, trying to start this thing where you think you're going to, be successful. And sometimes you don't realize it, but people don't, they're jealous of you attempting to become better and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, let's pull you back to be with the rest of us who aren't doing the things that you want to do, to keep you in that circle. So I think that's a great point, right? Find those people, even like surrounding yourself with people that are successful writers, or like, hey, I'm just looking for, like I saw in the tweet chat about, like having an accountability group where everybody kind of supports each other. Like I've seen that, like I think they have both a nonfiction and a fiction one, but the Nano Rimo, where they try to get people to write like a book every year, like for a month, they get people to write. And I've noticed that they have more and more of these groups that are kind of popping up, and especially now, right, when people have been home so much, now they actually have the time to spend a little bit of time, to your point of like, okay, let me book part of my calendar every day where I'm going to write or get some thoughts out on paper, because maybe you do get stuck, but if you start to can think of topics that you want to write on, and maybe start that, kind of like start that high level outline, and then start to add into it every day, and you'll eventually have something.
Yeah, one person suggested mind maps, and mind maps can be a great way because sometimes the ideas are not linear. You get an idea and then it spins off in this direction, which then has an idea over here, which then comes around, and then this idea actually comes and goes in this direction. And so because our ideas aren't linear, our thoughts are really not linear. We really think
Right.
in circles. I think even guys do. I understand most men compartmentalize, but yeah, I think guys do. um, but you have to find what helps you to collect your thoughts down. And then one of the things that a couple of things that were mentioned too is like when I get a writer's block, a lot of times I'll just get up from the table. I might go for a quick run or do some kind of exercise. Somehow the breathing harder, the blood in the muscles kind of clears my head, and I can sit down, I can look at what I'm doing going, oh yeah, okay, I can see where this can be beneficial. I mean, have you ever had that experience?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even yesterday, part of what I was writing in this newsletter, you know, five ways to use Twitter. It's like, and I even had one of my friends like, hey, would you write a blog post for my website about that? I was like, you know what, I probably could, right? I've already got it outlined, and I could definitely add more, meat to it, and even make it more things. So I think that, no, absolutely, you start to write something like, oh, well, now I could write something about this. I think that's a good point. Even if I've been thinking about writing, right, my mind block, I'm thinking about writing an article about StreamYard and all the benefits of using that for live streaming. Because sometimes you notice that people that do a lot, like say in the world of video, don't necessarily write a lot. They think of all these YouTube creators. They create all these great YouTube videos, but they never repurpose it into written word, other than the transcription on the video itself. But if they were to create some of that in the blog post, they probably would get even more traffic.
Right. Yeah, because the SEO plays into it, and I think too. So one of the other recommendations. So this was from Joel, who joined us, Joel Canfield. And he said that if you hit a spot where you think you have writer's block, to go out and get more information. So one of the things that I did recently is I thought, I was starting to feel a lack of confidence. There's people like Sam Kelly and Madeline Sklar, and I thought, oh my gosh, they know everything about Twitter. I don't feel like I'm as competent in Twitter as they are. And then somebody introduced me the idea of PLR. So they're private license. Oh gosh. It's a private license that you can use to repurpose content. And what that does is, yes, you can use some of it. You can quote it. It's not plagiarism because you've paid for the license, but it can be a great springboard for your own thoughts and your own machinations about stuff. So I got this one on Twitter, and I read this and I thought, oh, I can take that and I can turn that into my own. I can make that my own voice with my own thoughts. So it became a springboard for me to be able to share what I wanted to. And because it was already written, it was easy for me to look at it and go, oh, well, I would just change this and this and this. So PLR, and oh my gosh, I think private license rights is what PLR stands for. And each, you have to make sure that you're getting you understand what the license is that you're getting, because the license can be, it can be just that you take it and you rewrite it, or you don't even have to rewrite it. You can actually take it, rebrand it, and reuse it. Some of it you have to be careful because you can't give it to somebody else for them to use. So there's all kinds of layers to it, but PLR is a really great way to get content out there. It doesn't take very much time, and it's relatively inexpensive. I mean, the stuff I've bought's less than $100.
How much information does it give you for that? Like, is it like quite a bit, or does it depend on the topic?
Well, there are a couple. So like a checklist will cost a couple of dollars depending on the checklist. Because I have a corporate housing business, I like to put out tips for people on how to live, to be what they call travel warriors or road warriors. But I bought one for like $20, and it had checklists, it had worksheets, it had emails, it had a 40-page book that I could have just rebranded and used for my own I mean, it was pretty robust. It was very, very robust. And plus I have the templates for email. So now I can take those templates and all I have to do is tweak them to my brand. So there's a lot of ways that and that one I think cost me $22. That was really super inexpensive. Sure. And it's a great way to get content and to let it, I mean, you don't want to, well, I mean, I don't know. Some people may just want to take that and run with it, and that's cool.
Right.
Other people may want to take it and go, let me use it to help it spark my own creative muse.
Interesting.
So I personally would love to see you write something about, what did you call it? StreamYard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to see something about StreamYard because I'm curious about that. Oh, Tom is here. Oh gosh, I didn't see him. Oops. Tom, you're late. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'll edit that out. Okay, I'm gonna have to. This is crazy. Oh, well, it's your choice. It's your call. So we were talking about how to get rid of writer's block. What are your suggestions? What do you do when you feel like you've run out of content or you just can't write?
I hesitate to admit this.
You don't have that problem, do you?
I've always got things to write. I'm always kicking myself because I'm simply not writing enough. And I made a note to myself just the other day that here are the things I should be writing about right now. I mean, there are so many leadership lessons going on in the news, in the world, in politics. I mean, so many. And I'm not doing it. I keep making these notes and listing these ideas, and then, the day gets away from me and nothing subject gets written. So what my issue is more, I'm going to say external issues, if I'm not copping out by saying that. I've had some issues I'm dealing with, and they're sucking up a lot of time.
Not the least of which is a shoulder problem.
Yeah, I spent all day yesterday at the hospital where the surgery is going to be done, and they were doing all the pre-tests and the blood work and chest x-rays and all that. That took the whole day. And then today I had another medical appointment early in the morning, and when I got back from that, I was so tired. I was sitting at the computer and just zonked out. And the only thing that woke me up was when my computer dinged to tell me I had 15 minutes until USABizParty started. So I jumped in on that. And then after that, I don't know if you saw my messages, I couldn't get into the Zoom.
No, once I'm here, I don't usually, I
There's a window
no.
that pops up that says the host will let you in soon.
Yes, and you know what? I was so busy talking.
It never happened. So I went away, and then I was sitting here doing some other stuff, and all of a sudden it pops up, and I'm like, oh, okay, yes, it is starting. So anyway, I'm just a bit befuddled and fatigued, and I'm not a whole lot of use.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Hello, Jim. I haven't had a chance to say hi.
How's it going? Good to see you, Tom. I know I was just stalking the I was stalking the thing, but I just learned something new from Anna today. I'd never heard of PLR products, or private label rights, where you can find stuff that other people have written and you can rebrand it as your own. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that, because like there's probably a lot of good stuff out there on different social media platforms, like, how to use Twitter and everything else. And maybe you don't even have to, rewrite it yourself, because it's kind of like, it's kind of like sometimes with government stuff, right? It's basically public domain, and sometimes it's like you're just pretty in the pig to get people to be putting it in your own language a little bit, but it's not like it's rocket scientry.
I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Bly. He's a copywriter that has a great email notice he puts out. And he talks about this frequently, about developing information products and how easy it is to do exactly what you're talking about. And I'm always intrigued too in my field of government contracting. If I'll write something up and I'll quote from the regulation, and somebody will say to me, well, how do you have the right to use that? And it's like, okay, I'm trying to gauge your level of stupidity before I answer you. Because government regulations are not copyrightable, let alone copyrighted. And so I don't know how to attack your question, because
Right. Well, even in a sense, right? Like sometimes there's people that make money off of this, and sometimes I'm like, well, other than the initial work, there's nothing that would prevent you from, say, as an example, doing the research and finding like 100 best websites to get information on government contracts in the state of Georgia, right? You could literally take every procurement site for every city or county in the state of Georgia and say, I'll sell it to you for $9.99. Sure, they can go spend the time of finding it.
Yeah.
And it's free, but there's nothing that prevents you from creating those sort of informational resources, other than, do you want to do it yourself, or do you want to find someone to do it for you? And because I noticed a couple of these like virtual summits and things I've done before, like even David Newman on his speaking book. If you bought his book early, you got these resources. And one of them was like, this guy here's a list of a bunch of associations that are looking for speakers. Normally he charged money for it, but he was giving it away for free. I'm like, well, damn, I could do something like that in my spare time.
Yeah.
Because people want this information, but they don't know where to look. Or even I talked to a guy that I think he had been up in Chicago or somewhere, and he has actually moved to Florida, and his father-in-law called me and said, hey, maybe you can help him. And he was like, it's like he knew who you need to talk to, in a sense, if you're wanting to get your ads or whatever, say, into certain like publications. I said, well, you could create a product out of that. If you know, like, Tom's the guy, and here's Tom's email address. If you want to talk to, you know, find out about doing contracts with NASA or this, that, and the other, you know, people will pay for that information. Yeah, you're going to get those few people that don't want to pay, and then it's like, fine, go do it yourself. But you know, that gets into where sometimes giving away the freebie leads to people being willing to pay for something, because some of this stuff is just not, it's not like they can't go find it, but you know, it's kind of like, if you show me how to write a contract, Tom, you're right, you can give me all the steps and write, you know, in talking on how to respond to request for proposal. But then when I start going through it, I was like, geez, this is a lot of work. I'm just going to hire Tom to do it.
I actually have an ebook that does exactly that, or is designed to do exactly that. And it didn't get put on the new website when we launched it a few weeks ago, because, as is so often the case, the government changed the system. And they went from what was known as the CCR registration, Consolidated Contractor Registration, to SAM, System for Award Management. And I have to go in and edit the book to tweak that one little piece.
Right.
But that's what it was all designed around. And that was what it was supposed to do. But I got to tell you, I mean, I probably sold 3 copies. I gave away dozens.
Right.
And not a single one of them led to a higher engagement.
Interesting.
Well, one of the things we'll be talking about next week, we're going to talk about editing, because that seems to be another tough topic for people. But marketing too, that's you know, how do we get the word out to the right people who are going to pay for what the information that we're presenting? So I'm really looking forward to that, because there's so many, there's just so many things that you can do. And again, it comes down to, and I'm not saying that you have this mentality, Tom, at all. It's just that I think people get the impression that I'm going to write this bestseller and it's going to make me money for the rest of my life. And,
It is.
you know, the attitude, okay, Jim, we need to talk. But the thing is we have to look at books as a tool, unless you want to be J.K. Rowling's or somebody. But even J.K. Rowling's, you know, she has to continually create content, because the Harry Potter series is great, and that was a wonderful thing. But if she's going to stay relevant, if she's going to stay in tune with her market, she has to constantly be creating content. She can't just sit on her hands and say, well, you know, I've done all this writing. And, you know, and then people realize that, oh my gosh, I have to develop a following. I have to get people to track with me, that, you know, I can develop an interest for them into what I'm doing. Of course, for her, you know, she wasn't an overnight success. It's about building little things at a time. And most overnight successes took 5 to 10 years. I mean, there's never been an overnight success that was true or sustainable. And so people, but we'll be talking to more about that tomorrow too, because I'm helping Tom hopefully get some business moving, even while he's going to be laid up. How long are you going to be in the hospital, Tom?
Well, the actual surgery is an outpatient deal.
Oh, nice.
They're not even going to call me till the night before to tell me what time to show up. It's like a FedEx delivery or something. I don't know. And but that's not the issue. The issue is that the doctor says it's 6 to 12 months of recovery and rehab. And everybody keeps telling me the rehab is intense, it's painful, and you got to take it seriously. And the doctor said this too, in about a year, you'll begin to approximate where you were before the injury. Like approximate. And he's like, oh yeah, it'll never be exactly the same. It's not going to happen. I'm like, gee, that's some of the greatest news I've gotten in a while. Thank you. I've been talking to
Right.
some people about um, actually leaving Twitter because of all the nonsense that's going on in there right now.
Oh yeah.
And with the election coming up, it's not going to get prettier. And it can be an amazing time suck if you let it. And sadly, when you're kind of laid up and feeling sorry for yourself, it's an amazing time suck. And,
Well, I mean, I think that's why for me, and I try to emphasize it a lot with people, is I really stay focused on Twitter lists and Twitter chats. I don't allow myself to get sucked into the main feed, because if you do, you'll get that negativity. You know, even with the Tim and Jim show, and I don't know if you've thought about doing that even for USA Biz Party, Anna. I have a guest list that once that guest has been on our show, I add them to that list. So one, I'm able to stay engaged and support the guests that have been on our show and retweet their stuff or engage with them. And I just, I don't, I kind of go along with the Ryan Folan, Leonard Kim book, Did She Act? I don't let myself get sucked into politics and religion, because it'll just, you're going to have basically conversations with idiots, and it'll never stop.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think is important. And one of the things that's important for Twitter is I think you have to be careful of the rants. And a lot of what's out there, especially if you follow the trending, and I'm going to mention this in the book, is the trending hashtags now are just becoming like political hot potatoes. Today, the gal that helps me with my Facebook said, "Hey, do you want to do?" And she named the topic, and I said, to me, that's a political hot potato, and I stay away from them. So I'm not committing one way or the other. Do I support that whole idea? Sure, I believe everybody should be treated equally. Am I going to open my Facebook feed to creating conversations around that when this is such a heated debate right now? No,
Right.
I'm just not.
I found it fascinating. I think it was Maria Forleo I saw was taking some heat because she has a business Facebook group for these women. Well, I think it's just entrepreneurs, but I think most of them are women. And I think people were posting in her group about what was going on. And we're like, and she's like, look, this is not the place for these conversations. I'm not allowing it. If you want to talk about it, do it on your own group, your own pages, and your homes. And people took offense. It's like, but this is her business.
Yeah.
And you're not respecting the fact that why are you going to make people sponsor this no matter which way you feel about it, right? Take it to your own playground, and don't, because some people don't want to talk about it, and we have to respect that. Everyone has different opinions, and I'm literally 10, 15 miles from downtown Atlanta. We're watching that on the news every night, and has anything changed yet? No. Broken windows, people getting arrested. But, I even right now, we've got people participating in this Blackout Tuesday thing. It's like, is that really going to do anything? It's almost like you're, in some aspects, you're just like, oh, look at me. I'm part of the solution. I'm participating in Blackout Tuesday. And it's like, I'm fine with supporting people that need support, but I'm not going to sit there like, oh, look at me. I had my black square on Tuesday, so that means I'm cool now.
Yeah, well, I want to be really cautious because, I
Right.
probably will not post all of this
Right.
in the USA Biz Party because it did get off topic. But
Right.
I think my concern is that stuff like this actually deepens racism and doesn't help it. When we start to look at, we have to support them because they're different, then we're not looking at them as fellow human beings that should be treated just like every other human being. It's difficult.
Right.
I mean, our town is getting ready to stage a demonstration, and I looked at my kids and I said, "You will not be there. I don't care that you're adults now. You will not be there." They're like, "We're not going, Mom. We're not going." And because it could stay very peaceful, and then all it takes is two people to throw something, and then before you know it, there's a riot. And I'm like, no, we're not. So I've actually canceled appointments for this afternoon so that I don't have to be outside, because I don't know where this thing, we don't know what's going to happen. And, but I'll tell you what, let's go back a little bit to the writer's block so we can kind of
Yes.
close that out. And then I can, I can edit it appropriately. Um, but I enjoyed the chat today, because I think that people came up with a lot of really good suggestions for people that are writing or have an inkling to write, even if they're just doing blog posts or even social media posts. I mean, writing isn't just about creating this book that people are going to go ooh and ah over. Writing is about creating content that's valuable to people, and you have to dedicate time every day. Like you were saying, Tom, it's, to be a professional, you have to dedicate time to it. It's not something that's just going to happen on a whim, or you sit down. Everybody who says write your book in a weekend, there has to be work that goes into it. Writing it in a weekend's probably not going to happen. Or it's not going to be, it's going to be one of those books that you read on Kindle and you go, oh my God, did you see all of those grammatical errors? I'm like, those were the books that were written in a weekend.
Yes.
So,
Well, and that's a great point. That'll be good to talk about the editing, because I think that's where people run into issues, is like they write this stuff, but because if you're looking at it yourself, you tend to not see your own errors.
I know.
And even sometimes, even using something like spell check or Grammarly, the word might be spelled right, but it's the wrong context. It's the wrong, and even a poorly written sentence doesn't necessarily get caught because everything's spelled right.
Yeah.
So you have to have that second set of eyes to really make sure that it makes sense. And even like yesterday, I had to like reread. It's like, oh, I forgot to, I thought I had put something in there, right? And in my visible mind, it was there, but no, it wasn't. It's like, thank goodness I hadn't hit send yet.
Tom, any concluding thoughts?
No, not really. I do think the guests you had today, the husband and wife team, were great additions and brought a lot to the table for that. Sorry they couldn't join us for the Zoom call.
Yeah, she'll be here. She's going to co-host a couple of the events this month, because she does marketing for book writers. And so she'll be joining us. But yeah, they were. I mean, now I'm going to go buy a grease pencil and see what my husband says as I write on the walls of the shower.
Told you I use a wipe-off marker. Works great.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. This is actually becoming the Anna, Jim, and Tom hour. This is really quite fun. So, Tom, I guess you won't be joining us next week. You might be a little hazy from all the medication.
I might be great fun. Who knows?
That would be, yeah. I've got stories about when my daughter came out of her day surgery for another time. But yeah.
With that stuff that makes you completely forget anything that happened. Real quick, if I can tell you, I had another procedure. We won't go into the details. And I'm suddenly sitting on my bed at home. And my wife then walks in, and I said, how did I get here? She says, well, don't you remember the procedure? And I said, yeah, I remember that. She says, well, after that, you remember we went and got McDonald's? And I was like, no. She says, so you don't remember going by the ATM machine and giving me your passcode so we could get cash? I was like, no, I don't remember that at all. It caused me to go change my passcode, obviously. But yeah, those drugs will knock you out and make you stupid.
Very funny. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you. We'll meet again next week. And Tom, if you would like to entertain us next week, you're more than welcome to join us then.
You might just have to mute me. Hard to tell.
Well, this is a party. We have fun, and I'm hoping that with time that these will continue to grow and we'll get more interaction with people. I think we will, but this is a lot of fun. There is a YouTube channel now, so for those of you who are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to USA Biz Party, because I put these up after every USA Biz Party now. So they're not fancy. It's pretty just raw footage, but it's there for you to get more information and for me to get transcriptions so that I can write a book someday. So anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Make
Thank
it
you.
a day. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.